Olivia from Beauty Cakes, and today I have one of those talking / advice videos for you guys. I've been requested to do a lot more of them, and I only do them when I feel like there's something to talk about. And just recently I've been getting a lot of asks on my Tumblr about job-wise, people applying for their first job, or any tips I can give to people who are looking for a job. This is just, obviously from my personal experience. I'm not saying that I am the master at getting jobs. I'm saying that, like, from my personal experience, I feel like I've had a good run at getting jobs. So this is just something I want to share with you guys because I get asked a lot about. So let me start off by giving you a little bit of a background of my working experience. So I first got a job when I was 14 years old. I am now 19, currently turning 20 in December at the end of the year. So my first job was when I was 14, so that was my first year of high school. And my first job was at Tim Hortons. For Americans who don't know what Tim Hortons is, it is a coffee shop, like sandwich shop, similar to Starbucks, but not really. I don't know. I worked there for a couple months, almost a year, I think, just over half a year. And I liked it. It was a good first job. It was easy, simple, like there's a lot of tasks to keep me busy, and for a student who's never had a job before, it just worked for me, and I made the money that I needed to just go out and spend on things such as going out with my friends, food, whatever, whatnot. After that, I got a job at Holt Spa for my co-op, and then they hired me after my co-op as well. So I worked there for a little bit, but just the commute was too long for me. It was all the way downtown, and I lived out in the suburbs. Basically, I had to commute downtown. It just wasn't worth it. I made minimum wage as a student, and what I did there was just basically some simple admin stuff like filing, booking appointments, that just simple stuff, and just going around the spa and like cleaning up after whatever. And it was a really easy job, and I actually liked the environment a lot because it was so laid back. But again, like it was an hour for me to bus, and just the money I was making wasn't really worth it. So I got rid of that job. And the mistake I did there was that I quit my job before looking for another job. So for a good amount of time I was unemployed for a couple months, and it just felt weird for me to be not making money. So I applied at a whole bunch of places. I put out my resume everywhere. I ended up working at A&W, which is I worked at A&W for like less than 2 weeks, because the thing is, I worked at A&W because it took me, like, they were just like, alright, you can have the job. So I was like, okay, cool. It was really easy for me to get the job at the time, so I just went into it. But then, like, 2 weeks after I got that job, I got the call back from Aritzia wanting to interview me. So I got the interview, and then I got the job on the spot. So I only worked for A&W for like 2 weeks, and I quit, which I feel badly about because I don't like to, work for companies and end up quitting. From then on, I worked at Aritzia. I've worked at Aritzia for like 4 or 5 years now, basically ever since that time. So I was 15 when I got hired. So I worked 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So I've worked there for like 4 years, going on to 5 years now. So that's my kind of employment history. And currently I'm working at a little boutique in the area because I only worked at Aritzia back home, and since I live in Toronto now, I didn't want to transfer to any places around here because it wasn't close enough to me. So yeah, basically I still work at Aritzia. Whenever I go back for, let's say, summer or winter break, if I go back for a little bit, then they'll take me back right away, which is really nice of them. Anyways, but I get a lot of questions regarding, anything about getting jobs, like applying for jobs, so I feel like I should just, give you guys a little bit of advice. Okay, so the first issue people like to ask me about is working while in school, and I think it is all up to you and how you feel about it. For some people, it's hard for them to balance school and work, and they just can't do it. In that case, I would suggest that you focus on school, like having a part-time job at Tim Hortons isn't going to suffice when you are getting an education for something that's going to be worth it in the future. So yeah, if you cannot balance the both and you find that your grades are really dropping, then stick to school. Don't think about a job right now because that's not going to be for you. You can try again later on. For people that can handle it, I guess, like I was able to handle it. My grades dropped a little bit, but it wasn't significant, so whatever. I did both, and yeah, so basically it's just on you and what you can handle, your multitask abilities. For me, when I was in high school, I worked 2 or 3 times a week. Usually during the weekdays it was like 5 to 9 or 5 to 10 or something like that, and then on the weekends I would work like full 8-hour shifts. So yeah, I found that was okay for me, so I decided to do that. Basically, that's my opinion on having a job while in school, because it's just about what you can handle. When it comes to college, I don't necessarily encourage you to get a job while in school. I know a lot of people have to work while in college and university just because you know, going to school is expensive when you're in post-secondary and you need the money, and if you need the money then you have to take a job, and then when you take a job sometimes your grades will lower. Like, it's a vicious cycle, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I also get a lot of asks about parents, like job versus parents, and if your parents don't want you to get a job, then they're probably nice enough to, you know, provide you with some money for you to spend, but I feel like a lot of parents don't want you to get a job because they don't want you to compromise school. As with my parents, I've always, like, my parents have always trusted me and trusted me to make the right decisions, and they feel that, like, if I were to make a mistake, then I learn from that mistake. They let me learn from my own mistakes, and they just guide me in the right direction. So yeah, my parents they're like, you know what, make sure, if you get a job, make sure that you just don't lose focus in school. And I was like, okay, cool, I can do that. So that's what I did, and you know, I proved to my parents that I was able to keep up a job in school at the same time, so they were happy with it. And looking back on it now, they were really happy that I started working at such a young age, because now I'm able to support myself fully, completely. Now that I've moved out of my parents' house, I'm able to support myself to every extent: rent, groceries, like monthly expenses, whatever. Like, my parents don't have to pay they don't have to give me any money because I've saved up so much money since I was little. So, like, you know, as long as you prove to your parents that you can do it, then they should be okay with it, you know. You can always maturely talk to them and be like, hey mom, is it okay if I try out a job, and if my grades slip then I'll quit the job, but if not, then it'd be really nice for me to keep the job. So you know what, it's just all about explaining to your parents and proving to them that you are mature and trustworthy enough to get a job. Another issue is job versus social life, and what I feel about that is that you can easily balance the two. You know, working a job doesn't necessarily mean that your social life is going to go down the drain. Like, I worked 2 or 3 times a week during high school. I still had enough time to go see my friends and whatnot. You have to kind of set your priorities straight. You know, like, obviously a job is going to give you more experience than going to see the movie with your friends. Especially like during summer break when people take on summer jobs. Every time I work in the summer, I work full-time overtime. So I take full-time hours, so that's like, I work over 30-40 hours a week during the summer, not to mention like overtime hours that I do as well. So in the summer, I really like push it. Like, I go for the gold in the summer and make all the money that I can in the summer. And essentially people who do that in the summer can go without working throughout the school year if you make a lot of money in the summer. In the summer, I would work like 5 to 7 days a week, usually 5 or 6 days, and I still had time to go see my friends. Like, even if you work 8 hours a day, you can still go see your friends after work. Like, it's not a big deal. Moving on to the process of getting a job, first of all, you need a resume. No matter what job you go into, you're gonna need a resume. A resume basically is just like, but all your experience, your skills, whatnot. If you don't know what a resume is, you don't know how to make one, Google it, because there are some good Google tutorials out there. I think they should teach it to you in school. I got taught in school how to make a resume, and also I had older friends and family members that taught me how to make a resume. And I'm not gonna lie, my resume is the bomb. Like, with pretty much any job I've applied at, I've at least gotten an interview. So I feel like my resume is pretty up to par. But basically, what I get a lot of questions about is people that don't have any work experience, what should they put on their resume? What you should put on your resume if you don't have any work experience is any experience you've had in a workplace environment, such as volunteering. I did a lot of volunteering before. You know, for high school you had to get volunteer hours. I don't know if that's the same for like everywhere, but for my area you had to get volunteer hours to graduate. So, you know, I put down my volunteer hours. I volunteered with a youth group, volunteered at events, like whatever, city events. So all that kind of stuff, definitely put on your resume, any volunteer experience if you don't have any work experience. And not to mention, don't forget your like credentials, such as, let's say you took a computer course in high school, so you can put that down, like you are fluent in Microsoft Word and whatever, blah blah, like whatever your skills are. You really just got to think about all your skills and experiences if you don't have any work experience to put on your resume. Regarding your personality and looks when you go to apply a job, you know what? Reality is, whether you like it or not, you will be judged on your looks, more or less, no matter what. Like, think about it. If you go to apply a job and you're in sweatpants and bummy and your hair is tied up, whatever, and you look like crap, do you really think that the people hiring you will have a good impression on you? Probably not. So to an extent, looks do matter, and I believe that. It's unfortunate that life is that way, but it is what it is, and that's what society is. So when you go to apply for a job and you go hand in your resume, you want to dress well, have a good personality, be outgoing, be friendly, just be confident and bright and really have that radiate. And you want to dress nice. Like if it is like a more casual job, just like a student job, you know, a pair of nice dress pants or maybe like a nice skirt is good. But I find that from my experience, I would just go in like a dark pair of plain jeans, a nice top and a blazer, and that pretty much works for any kind of student job. Like they're not expecting too much out of students anyways. Tips when it comes to handing out resumes: always ask for a manager. If you don't know when a manager is working, call them in first and be like, hey, when's the next time your manager is going to be in? Go at that time. When you go and hand in your resume, ask for the manager. Be like, hey, is your manager in today? And then when the manager comes out, be like, hi, introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Sylvia. I was wondering if you guys were hiring or taking resumes right now. And then they'll say yes or no, and most places will take resumes regardless. Remember to be confident, be friendly, be outgoing. Your first impression means a lot. So from that, you will get a call back, maybe a week, a little more than a week or whatever. If you haven't heard back from them in a week, I would give them a call a week from the day you gave in your resume. Just be like, hey, last week I gave in my resume. I was just wondering if you had the time to look at it, etc, etc, etc. So that will just let them know that you're interested and that you're committed and you want the job. And yeah, so I would do that for, if you still haven't heard back from them, do it for another week or two. But generally, if they don't call you back by the 3rd week or 4th week, you probably didn't get the job. But don't be discouraged, you know. Every time you go to hand out resumes, by the way, hand out resumes to a bunch of places, especially if you're a student. Hit up a mall, go to a bunch of stores, or hit up a plaza, put your resume out in like all the stores in the plaza. You can't just put your one resume in that one place and expect to get the job. Life doesn't work that way. So you can't be super picky if you're a student looking for a job. Put your resume out in a lot of places, keep your head open-minded, and that will give you some of the results that you want. One of the parts that people dread the most is the interview, and I can admit it's a little bit nerve-wracking, especially if it's your first interview and you don't really know what you want to do and you don't really know what to do. So prior to getting, let's say you get a call and they tell you to come in for the interview. Prior to your interview, you want to research a little bit on the company that you're applying for. So let's say I'm use an example, Aritzia, okay? You want to go onto their website, find out what brands they carry, a little bit about like Wikipedia, that stuff, a little bit about their history, where they started, what they look for, like what their company is about, their culture, their motto, whatever, their mission statement, okay? So that you have a knowledge of what they're gonna ask you. I'm gonna give you the hint that most retail places or most places that serve customers is all about customer service. They will ask you about customer service, things such as like what does customer service mean to you, and you know, just stuff like that about customer service. So you know, learn about the company beforehand and have an idea of what they are looking for. When you go in for the interview, it kind of depends on where you are applying, that how to dress. You know, if it's an office job or a more corporate thing, then you want to dress more nicely, like an office attire. If it is something like a retail place, I would suggest that you take a look at what kind of people, what the people in the store wear, and then take it up a notch. So for example, at American Eagle, a lot of people are in casual wear, but you want to wear that, but take it up a notch. So instead of like, you know, short shorts, do like a nice skirt something that they would sell, and you know, a nice blouse and a blazer. I don't know, like I feel like a blazer always just kind of puts the look together when going to an interview. So kind of give a feel of what the store is, and make sure that when you're doing your interview that you are, you know, outgoing, smiley, happy, excited to work there. Like no one wants to work with someone who is a drag, you know. So you know about the company, make jokes, and just be happy, an overall happy person. Be positive about the situation, and they will, you know, sense your positivity and they'll like that. So when it comes to being on the job, I know a lot of students are really picky, and just because they encounter something they don't like to do on the job, they'll give up on it. And that's not the kind of attitude you want, especially if you're a student worker. You know what, just because you had a bad experience on your first day of work, don't give up. Come in the next day with a fresh attitude and do it over again. Like, so what if your manager yelled at you for doing something wrong? It's your first day, whatever, like, get over it. You know, not everything is gonna flow smoothly, and you just need to give it a try. You can't just sit there and mope about it, and just because you didn't like your first week of your job doesn't mean that you can just give up and be like, screw this. You know, you should push through, try it out. I would give it 2 to 3 weeks. If you really hate your job by 2 to 3 weeks, then fine, go apply for another job before you quit your current job though. Don't give up, you know, you really need to push through, and pushing through helps you learn things in life. You know, I've had my fair share of situations that were not in my favor, but by going through them and experiencing them, I've learned a lot from it. You know, learned a lot about the workplace in general, and just learned a lot about the work environment. So that's all I have for you guys as to advice. If there's any more questions, you can leave them in the comments below, and you can always ask on my Ask Tumblr as well, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I try to get back as soon as possible. So hopefully that helped you guys out, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for watching, and see ya.